Hi, welcome to another session of Thriving Through the Holidays. I am your host, Tracy Osborne. With me today is Rachel Grant, and we're going to talk about a very important topic, which is child abuse, but thriving through family gatherings and all of that, when you have to be dealing with your abusers and whatnot. So let me tell you a little bit about Rachel. She is the owner and founder of Rachel Grant Coaching and is a sexual abuse recovery coach with a master's in counseling psychology. She is also the author of Beyond Surviving, the Final Stage in Recovery from Sexual Abuse. She works with survivors of childhood sexual abuse who are beyond sick and tired of feeling broken, unfixable, and burdened by the past. She helps them to let go of the pain of abuse and finally move on with their lives. So Rachel, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks, Tracy. I'm happy to be here with you today, too. This is such a good and important topic for us to be exploring today.
It is, absolutely. Because of all the family gatherings and, people feeling like they have to be in the same room as those who harmed them as children. And that right there is just massive triggers. So I'm really excited to talk about this topic.
Me too.
Why don't we start, just give us a little snippet about your background and, a little bit about your story so that we know where you're coming from, and then we're going to go from there.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'll give you all the short version. You can certainly hear kind of more detailed versions if you pop over to my YouTube channel or the Beyond Surviving podcast. But long story short, I grew up in Oklahoma. And around the age of 5, my grandfather came to live with our family, and I really latched onto him, Tracy, because my older sister and brother didn't pay me any mind. So I thought, play pal here, and I would, just really come home from school and hang out with him, and we spent a lot of time together. Unfortunately, around the age of 10, my grandfather began sexually abusing me. And as so many of us do who have experienced sexual trauma, it immediately disrupted my life. Just even coming home now felt very, very different. This home that had been really comforting and safe, and it's particularly during the holidays, right? With Thanksgiving and Christmas and lots of joy and fun and family, that really started to change. And of course, my sense of self and full of a lot of shame and low self-worth, and I struggled for a long time. When my mom found out what was happening, she and my father got my grandfather out of the house, so I was relieved in that. But a big thing in our family was family reunions. And so those continued. And, I had a couple of run-ins, different than the holidays, but same thing, right? When we've experienced trauma within the family, this is a person who often is still a part of the family, and you end up bumping into them at different events or different things. And you have to have this whole layer of thinking about, what am I going to do and how am I going to handle that? And for me, my grandfather died about a year after the abuse stopped. So in many ways, I count myself lucky that he was gone. And I didn't have to navigate, further, coming into contact with him. But I know, in the 13 years that I've been working with survivors of sexual abuse, often the case is that abusers will be, still within the family. There can be a lot of dynamics of why are other people in the family not cutting this person off? All of that comes into play. And, if I just fast forward a little bit, around 2006 was going through a divorce. I'd been in an abusive relationship for about 10 years. And that was really just a huge turning point in my life when I decided enough is enough. I can't keep ignoring this. I've got to deal with it. And that really set me on my path of healing. And I really just became obsessed with trying to answer this question of how do we heal from sexual abuse. And so I began reading everything I could. I did my master's in counseling psychology. I studied neuroscience, and really I was just trying to get my shit together. But honestly, but it turned into this work that I do today with men and women, all over the country, all over the world. Yeah.
I think most of us who do this kind of work, that's exactly what it starts out. We're just trying to put ourselves together and figure out how do we become healed from our past, and it leads us down this path, because you can't do this kind of work if you haven't experienced it, you know.
Yeah,
you really
totally.
can't. You can't put yourself in place of your clients, so I think
Exactly.
but so, family reunions, you mentioned that, and I started thinking about the last family reunion I went to, which was about 4 years ago. And it was the first one I'd been to in 20, 30 years. And there was family there that kind of emotionally harmed me. They weren't bad, but there were a few things in there that, that just triggered me. Sure. And so, seeing them, I was on edge. I didn't really have a good time, because I was on edge. It was, gosh, what are they thinking? Are they judging me? Because, I went from this tiny little petite girl to now I'm not so tiny and petite, and they're all about looks and,
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And I thought, this is why I haven't been to one of these in so long, and I probably will never go to another one again.
Yeah, it was like confirmation. Oh yeah, that's why.
That's why.
That's why I don't hang out with y'all, because it brings all this stuff up. Totally. And I think that's so important to name that is a valid choice. This is, I always say to my clients, just because someone is family doesn't mean they automatically get to be in your life. And that can be tough because there is so much socialization around, families for life, blood is thicker than water, all of these sorts of things. But at the end of the day, one of the things we most have to do as survivors of trauma is learn how to prioritize ourselves and take care of ourselves. And sometimes that means not being in relationship with people. And that's tough because there's also loss in that. And we, even as we build our family of choice, like so many of us do, and that's amazing and rich, and so much love and connection and nurturing that we can get from people who we choose to be in relationship with, there's still always that little part of us that wishes that, our family maybe could be there for us, or we could be in relationship with them.
Yeah, but I like that you said it's a choice, and it's okay to cut them out of your lives. And it's okay to tell people, I would love to come to your house, but Uncle Bob is going to be there, and so I'm just not. That's okay.
I know for so many of my clients, getting to that place of being able to self-advocate, it takes some work, that part of ourselves that believes that we're even deserving of setting those kinds of boundaries, finding our voice. Some of that is the key work that I do with my clients that then sets them into the position where they can set those kind of boundaries and show up for themselves in that kind of way. Because when we're very much wrapped up in the trauma, when it's still super impacting us, our sense of self-worth and our capacity to even articulate what we need, and what we want and set those boundaries, is just really difficult. And so a lot of times we default to just pleasing everybody. I don't want to rock the boat, even just my capacity to deal with maybe backlash or the pushback that I might get from people might be very low. And so, I want to just say for all of you listening, that we're not saying, oh, it's just easy, just go and tell them you're not coming. like we both get, like, there are layers to that, but ultimately that's where the healing work often sits, is finding your capacity to be able to advocate for yourself.
So, what do we do? What do our listeners do? We've got Thanksgiving coming up, we've got Christmas coming up, and all the other holidays in December that people might celebrate, Hanukkah and whatnot.
Yeah.
And all of that is family, So for those who are already starting to dread the holiday season, how can they make it better this year? How can they make it different this year?
Sure. Well, so I think the very first step is having that conversation with yourself. Like, what am I really up for? And what do I really want to participate in? And a lot of it requires us maybe thinking outside of the box rather than getting into either or. Like one of my clients, this was a wedding, but she said, well, they're having like, this dinner before the wedding. She felt okay about the wedding because there was going to be enough people there to kind of diversify and all this, but they were having a little set dinner. And she was really feeling bummed about it because she just knew I can't go. It's just going to be too much. And that felt like a very either or conversation and an option. Either I go and I suffer and I deal with it, or I miss out. And in our work together, we started to brainstorm, well, what are some other possibilities? And she realized, well, actually, I could ask it was her niece who was getting married, like, what if I just have them over for dinner at my place on a different day and create a whole little event for just the three of us, right? Or her and some of her friends.
Mhm.
And it was a great alternative. And the niece was actually really thrilled about it, like, felt like extra special, like, this sort of thing. And so I think the first thing is really allowing yourself to expand your point of view and to start asking those kind of curiosity questions. So if I want to participate, how can I do that? What might be the options? What might be alternative ways of participating and being involved? If everybody always goes to Uncle Joe's, okay, fine. But maybe this year I'm going to create a day that's just at my house with just the people that I want. So that's the first thing. I think the other thing that's important to keep in mind is that if we do go into these, environments, what I always am talking with my clients about is how can we minimize and reduce risk?
Mhm.
So thinking ahead of time of like, what are the things that I know are going to be maybe the most activating or the most difficult? So for example, one of my clients, every single Thanksgiving, the abuser would sit next to her, like pointedly coming and like just taking a spot right next to her. And so then she's stuck there, stuck there. She has choice, but she didn't feel like that. And I get that, for 2 hours at this dinner table with this person next to her. So what we decided she was going to do to minimize and reduce the risk of that happening again was get to the party early and go to the table right away. And she took 3 jackets with her. And she put the 3 jackets on the backs of those 3 chairs. It's an amazing thing, right, Tracy? We have these social norms. It's like if there's a jacket on the
There's a
chair, you don't
jacket
sit.
and sit. Yep.
It's the most amazing thing. And so she had those 3 jackets there. People are coming in, filtering in, this, that, and the other, picking their spots too. And only after she saw that the person who abused her had sat all the way on the other end of the table, she took those other 2 jackets away. And 2 people sat down next to her that she was actually happy to be sitting next to. So the moral of that story really is activating choice,
Mhm.
thinking about what are my actual options. And are there like conversations I need to have ahead of time with a friend or a family member for how to maybe help me navigate this day? Thinking about, hey, if this starts to happen, here's what I'm going to do. Here's how I'm going to take care of myself. So just doing a little bit of planning ahead of time. Um, so that, and of course, having a plan for if you do get triggered or activated, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go? Who are you going to call? I think all of those things can really help shift the experience and the tone of the interactions that you might have at a holiday or any gathering.
I like it. I like that. And it does require a little bit more work on our parts. Having to create these plans and have those conversations. But unfortunately, that's what we have to do in order to, like you said, take care of ourselves and protect ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, but I like those ideas and those options. There's always an option.
Yeah.
Have to-
Yeah. And I think, that can sometimes be hard to tap into because, the very first thing that goes away when we experience sexual abuse is choice.
right,
Nobody's asking us.
right.
It's imposed, it's forced, it's a violation.
Mhm.
And this really teaches us that maybe our needs don't matter. I don't have any choice. I don't have any say. I'm at the mercy of somebody else. And while that is 100% true in the context of sexual trauma, now today in the present day as adults, we have to start working on agency. We have to come into that place of, no, I do have a choice. I do have a say. And that takes work and that takes time. I mean, that's, everything that I do with my clients and Beyond Surviving,
Yeah,
right? Is cultivating that.
not overnight.
Yeah, but as we connect into that more and more, then we stay in our empowered self more often. And the impact that other people can have on us and how much they can kind of influence or push our buttons, that can just really diminish. And so we can feel a little bit more safe, secure, even if we are in any way interacting with somebody who's caused harm.
Yeah. Wow. So what are some ideas that you have for people, you know, while they're there? We talked about having a plan, but, you know, can you help us kind of get an idea of what that plan would look like? We're
Oh
at
yeah.
the party, Uncle
Yeah.
Bob's coming over, I'm creeping out pretty hard. What do I do?
Yeah. Well, I think there's just so many options, but some things that I've offered to clients and that they've utilized is, an exit strategy. So, like one of my clients at it was a bat mitzvah. They were like, which can go a long time apparently. It can be hours and hours and hours. She with her partner, they just came up with a code word. So it was such a simple, easy way for her to cue him that I'm ready to go. I gotta go. And it didn't have to be a big thing. It didn't have to be, a big scene, but she just said, it was a silly word. It was something like sassafras or something like really silly. But she said that as soon as she hit her limit. And of course, that requires just staying tuned in with yourself and noticing, like, okay, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm not okay. Leaving is okay. It's actually a really valid choice. You don't have to stay, you don't have to suffer. And I want to really name that if we bypass our need to leave, that is often a re-traumatization. That sense of like, I have to. That is the context of trauma. I have to. I don't have any choice. I don't have any say. And so really honoring yourself is so, so critical. I think taking lots of time outs, really, like, the bathroom can be your best friend. Gotta go to the bathroom, gotta go to the bathroom, gotta go to the bathroom. I mean, just go.
Take over
Just
active bladder.
right. Like, man, people be like, gosh, she has to pee a lot, but yeah, so what? I don't care. Think
Right.
that. Right. But, think about ahead of time, what is a safe space in the environment that you're going into? Whether it's a known or an unknown, just try to wrap your head around what might be some safe spaces. Maybe it's an outdoor space, maybe it's a room, maybe it's a bathroom. But taking those places, those time outs, so that you can breathe, so that you can ground yourself back into the present, even if you need to like get pissed off and be like, I can't believe that son of a bitch is sitting here and I can't believe, like, voice whatever it is you need to voice. And that actually brings me to another piece, which is when we're in these kinds of situations, oftentimes we are suppressing ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we see that person across the room and what we really want to do is go and like punch them in the face, or say something or give them a what for. Or maybe we're noticing sadness or grief, right? All of that. But we're not in an environment where it's safe to express any of that. And so in that case, we are kind of appropriately suppressing. However, it's really important after the fact to give yourself permission to express whatever you didn't get to express. So go home, do some writing, do some journaling, scream in the shower, like whatever it is that you had to hold back, try to get that out, because otherwise it's just going to store in your system, and that ultimately is no good.
Mm-mm. That's just like drinking poison.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. I didn't even think about the re-traumatization. That was huge. So thank you for sharing that. You have a freebie for us. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so if you're somebody who identifies as having experienced childhood sexual abuse and you're in this journey of healing and looking for additional support, I'd love for you to download my 3 stages of recovery checklist. The importance of understanding where you are in your journey and what kinds of support you need based on where you're on your journey. It's critical. And so this guide is going to help you do some assessment of that, figure that out, and really understand what the goals of recovery are for each stage, what kinds of support to get. So you can go over to rachelgrantcoaching.com/checklist and access that. And of course, if you have any other questions, any other things that I can do to support you, I'm here and available. You can reach me at coach@rachelgrantcoaching.com.
Perfect. And we have all of Rachel's information below the video. So just click the buttons and you can get in touch with her. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
I
so nice to
could
hear.
actually talk about this for a while. So I was
Yeah,
like
me too.
watching, hey, I've got to cut
Yes, this is
myself off.
a bite-sized version, right?
Bite-sized,
But hopefully, for those of you listening, I just hope you can take any little piece of this that you might be able to add in, incorporate, but ultimately just know that you deserve safety. You deserve to take up space. You deserve to do what's right for you, and you don't have to explain it or defend it to anyone.
What she said.
Cheers.
That's a good place to leave it. Thank you again, Rachel, and thank you everybody who is listening and joined in. We'll talk to you in the next session.